The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar on professional communications. My name is Jill Sellers and I will be with you for the next 15 to 20 minutes discussing how we can better communicate. I chose this slide template because it's called integral, and I believe that integral is how we should view our professional communications. How we communicate is integral to moving forward with whatever is at hand, whether it be our profession, our department work, our business, whatever it may be, our communication is vital and integral to a successful outcome. If you are tuning into this webinar, then the chances are that you have had a miscommunication somewhere along the way and would like to know how to better communicate. It is important, I believe, to have transparent and meticulous communications in order to continue to progress the profession and whatever project or goal we are working on. So if this is you and you want to learn how to communicate better, then hopefully I will give you what you need. And if not, I'm going to let you contact me and let me know what it is that you do need. So professional communication is how we text, email, write, speak, listen, behave. All of these are ways we communicate. We represent ourselves primarily and our profession secondarily through our communications. Now, just because you or I wear a white coat and have an advanced degree does not make our communication professional. It is actually how we conduct ourselves through words and actions that accomplishes this. So it is important to have, good character when we are communicating. So your character counts. For purposes of this short webinar, we will focus on written professional communications, as that seems to be where I personally run into trouble. And it can be a bit more difficult to communicate via the written word. Written communication. Written communication is part of our world. Letters, notes, text, emails, instant messages, blogs, online forums, these are not going away anytime soon. Therefore, we need to adapt or learn how to communicate within these structures. Style of communication should match the occasion. So if you're speaking with a friend, then you can be more casual. You probably have a better rapport. They know you, you know them, and you can say things in a more relaxed manner, and they get it. If you are speaking to a colleague in relation to a project or something work related, then the tone should be more professional. You may not have the same type of relationship with a colleague that you would a friend or family member. Therefore, the style of communication should match. Handwritten notes, letters, and cards do have advantages that emails and texts cannot match. Handwritten notes, letters, and cards are warm, they're personal, they represent that you have taken the time and care to write. Many times people will delete an email, yet they tend to save the notes and letters and invitations that you may send them. Now, in the professional setting, handwritten notes are normally used to send a thank you, congratulations, or to compliment a job well done. More formal typed letters are used strictly for business. So keep that in mind moving forward. You would never want a handwritten note to extend beyond a thank you, congratulations, or a compliment of a job well done in the professional setting. Professional written communications are different. They are used in the workplace to advance a thought, solve a problem, progress a project, or update a task, just to name a few. Regardless of the purpose of written professional communications, keep it simple. So if you learn nothing else from this webinar, I hope that you will learn to keep it simple. And you will hear me say this repeatedly. Simple in this case is better. Emails are an efficient and effective form of communication if done well. If they are not done well, then you may have problems on your hands. Again, keep it simple. Use as few words as possible to convey your thought. I use a rule of 3. No more than 3 paragraphs. And I'm not talking long, huge paragraphs. I'm talking normal-sized paragraphs. No more than 3. No more than 3 points to get across, or 3 tasks to be extended to an employee, or no more than 3 questions to be answered. Whatever the issue, if more than 3 points need to be made or more than 3 questions need to be answered, then an email may not be the best form of communication. You may want to have a meeting or pick up the phone and discuss. Another item to keep in mind with professional emails is to stay on task. Do not stray from the subject line. If you have to go into a different subject, say for the same project, or a different subject and different project, it doesn't matter. Either one, you need to start a new email with each new subject. Don't mix subjects within various emails either. It makes it harder to locate the conversation later. I have had to educate people repeatedly on this. If you're talking about one project with a client and you start talking about another project with that same client, but the subject line still says the first project, but you're talking about the second project, it's very easy to not only get confused, but to lose those communications that could contain vital information for the project moving forward. The same goes for not mixing the subjects within various emails. So don't stray from the subject line. Make sure the subject line represents what's going to be in that string of emails, and then don't mix the subjects within the various emails. And this advice may be applied when you are the author of an email and when you are the recipient. I have one client I work with, and she'll answer an email or respond to a question and then ask another question about another project and another client in that email. So I no longer, because I continually try to educate her, I no longer respond to those emails. I start a new email, copy and paste, and show her that I'm starting a new email. I change the subject line, and then I go forward and answer her question. Some people just don't understand the importance of staying on task and not straying from the subject line. Others don't realize they're mixing subjects within emails. They think, oh, it's the same client, or they think it's the same type of project, so we'll just throw it in there. It does make it difficult. So please, please, please don't stray from the subject line. And if you need to start a new subject or discuss something new, start a new email. It really is the best way to move forward and keep yourself sane. Now, responding to emails. Written communications can be extremely effective, as I've said before, but they can also cause trouble. Now, I personally have had many instances where I've received emails that can easily be misinterpreted as terse. So, what do you do when you receive a terse or an unprofessional email? Do you get angry? Do you shoot off a terse response back? Do you tell them what you really think? I know it may be tempting, but so those are probably, you might get angry. I've gotten angry. And have I shot off a terse response back? Yes, and I've learned my lesson, which is why I'm here today to say, don't do what I have done in the past, because it can escalate a small situation into a larger situation, and that's really not what you want to do. Also, give the person the benefit of the doubt. So what should you do when you receive a terse and or unprofessional email? I have learned that I have to take a breath. If I don't know the person very well that's sending me the email, I tend to be more critical. That's just me. I probably shouldn't be, but it is. So I'll reread the email and see if maybe I was just in the wrong frame of mind when I read it the first time. I'll try to get some background information and apply that to when I reread the email, just to kind of provide some context. And I will then try to give that person the benefit of the doubt, because I used to be critical and now I'm trying to say, well, this is a professional email. They're probably not trying to be ugly. They probably just don't understand. The words they chose were very volatile or highly inflammatory. So then when I think about what the email was trying to convey, then or if I can't figure it out, I pick up the phone. So I think about what the email conveyed. If I still don't understand, I pick up the phone and I call the person. And I just say, hey, I got this email and it seems you're upset. Now, I cannot tell you how many times when I say something like that, they're like, oh, no, I'm not upset at all. Not at all. I'm sorry if it came across that way. Because sometimes in our rush, in our busyness, we tend to just stick to the facts, which is good. We want to stick to the facts, but there's no uh, dear Dr. Sellers, or no salutation, or there's no thanks, I look forward to your feedback. There's just nothing. And I think that tends to show terseness and sometimes can be unprofessional. But if you say, dear Dr. Sellers, I'm having this problem, da 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 da, and then I still don't understand, I'm going to pick up the phone and we can talk about it. But back to, you know, picking up the phone and trying to resolve something, I'll tell you, I have eliminated multiple potentially volatile situations by picking up the phone and saying, I got this email, it seems like you're upset, or it was a bit terse and that just doesn't sound like you, or I know we don't know each other very well, but I'm getting the feeling that you're upset about something. And then they can say, oh, no, not at all. And that's usually the case, is they're not. Just in their rush, they quickly sent off something, that lacked a salutation or a closing remark, and it looked very flat and terse. And they might have used some inappropriate words, or words that did convey some negativity. And then you might just say, well, these words conveyed negativity to me, so that's why I thought maybe there was a problem. And it's an educational experience for them too. So if you're sitting there listening to this saying, boy, this seems like common sense. Well, it is. A lot of it is. But sometimes when we've gotten into an email or a text message argument, or a highly sensitive exchange, it's sometimes easy to lose sight of common sense. So, how many of you have been a part of a simple situation that escalated for no reason due to an email? So it happens. While what I am telling you may be common sense, it is useful, when it's actually implemented. So we sometimes forget our common sense when our anger gets involved or emotions get involved. So responding to emails in general, be timely in your response, usually within 24 hours. Now, I know some businesses and some companies have actual policies on how long you can wait before responding to an email. I know most of the places I have worked before said that a timely response was 24 hours. That is still appropriate etiquette. Sometimes you need time to research to have the appropriate response. Sometimes you may have to get a few more people involved in finding the answer. So if it's going to take more than 24 hours, then you may need more time to think about your answer and respond. Let the sender know. Say, I received your response. I need to do a bit of research and follow up. It may take, a couple of days before I get back to you. So make sure they know you're not just ignoring them. It's just a polite way to keep the lines of communication open, and so that they understand exactly where you're coming from. Sometimes you may receive an email inadvertently. Let the sender know right away, because they may not know it came to you and they're waiting for someone else to respond. So I've actually had that happen to me, and they've responded back saying, I don't think this was meant for me. And I say, thank you very much, because otherwise I would have been waiting for so-and-so to get back to me and not knowing that I sent it to the wrong person. And I might have gotten upset if they hadn't responded in a timely manner. So if you receive an email inadvertently, then let the sender know. Regardless of your method of response to an ugly email, waiting to respond is always trending. Regardless of your method of response, whether you email back or you pick up the phone or you walk down that hallway and have a face-to-face conversation, waiting to do that is always trending. Taking a deep breath and making sure that you have your facts and that you're calm when you address whatever issue it is, that's important. Now let's talk a little bit about email do nots. Now, some people are going to laugh when I say this, but do not use emojis in email. Emojis are open to interpretation and can cause many issues with communicating clearly. Case in point, you probably have seen the little emoji that looks like the top of a chocolate ice cream cone or a Hershey kiss, but it's really a pile of poop. And I did not understand that when that one first came out, and sent it to somebody, and they started laughing. And of course, they educated me on that it was not a Hershey kiss. I thought I was sending a Hershey kiss, but that it was indeed a pile of poop. So why they put eyeballs in it, I don't know, but that is just an example. Other things that you might see in emails are text message slang. Don't use text message slang in emails either, or abbreviations and acronyms. Don't use text message abbreviations or acronyms in email. They were strictly developed and meant for text messages, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Do not put anything in an email that you do not want shared. Emails are very easy to copy and paste from. They are very easy to forward. They are very easy to reply all. Do not put anything in an email that is not true. Now, this happens quite a bit. There are people who get emotional and start, ranting, I guess, for lack of a better word, or venting, and start getting their emotions involved and basically get off track and start kind of stretching the truth. So my recommendation to you is, if you know it's not true, do not put it in an email. Do not put anything in an email that you cannot support, that you do not have the facts or the research to support. And do not put anything in an email that you will regret. Any good lawyer will tell you all of these things. They will tell you, do not put anything in writing that you do not want shared. Do not put anything in an email that you cannot support or is not true. And do not put anything in writing that you will regret. Those things have a way of coming back around and sometimes biting us where it hurts. Now, professional letters, moving on to a different type of written communication, professional letters are stagnant, for lack of a better term. They offer first impressions, so there is not the back and forth that you would have with an email or a text message. So in a professional letter, you want to make a good first impression. If you're not known to the person, to the recipient, to the person you're sending it to, you'd like to introduce yourself. Professional letters convey your character, so the words that you use are very important. They explain your interest in the topic, specifically if you're looking for a job. This is where a cover letter, which is a professional letter, is very important. So explaining your interest, again, succinctly, keep it simple, and then telling a little bit about your experience, again, succinctly. A professional letter, especially a cover letter, should be one page. And again, back to that rule of three, it should have 3 main paragraphs, and all of which provide a first impression and convey your character. Now back to vocabulary. I mentioned that just briefly, but a good vocabulary doesn't mean using big words to replace small ones. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about using the right word. A good vocabulary means using the right word to convey your meaning. And you want to strive for a wide-ranging vocabulary. And again, you want it simple and direct. Now, some people say, well, if it's too simple, I feel like I'm stupid. No, simple is good. You want to be able to communicate. And using simple words, but the right word, it shows your intelligence. Words that are direct can sometimes seem terse or ugly. Not necessarily. You want to say what you mean what you say, right? So simple and direct. Again, it helps you convey the appropriate meaning. Don't use fillers. So the less said, both with orally speaking, right, verbally communicating, or communicating via the written word, the less said, the better most times. So again, simple. Don't use meaningless interjections, okay? Don't overuse words. I have a friend that uses absolutely all the time. I mean, you say, do you want to go out to dinner? Absolutely. Well, how about yes? Again, simple and direct. So overused words include absolutely, totally, actually, interesting, nice, great, super, awesome, fabulous. I also have a friend who's from another country, but says this a lot. To be honest, to be honest. Well, frankly, I do want you to be honest in everything you say, so I don't necessarily need you to qualify when you are going to be honest with me. I'd like you to be honest with me all the time. So keep in mind that there may be words that you overuse. I know there's words I overuse, and you probably are picking up on some of them now as I'm speaking. I'm working on that. But it is specifically and more importantly important to not overuse these words in the written forms of communication. Don't choose words or phrases that sound pretentious or pompous. Don't choose things that you know the person on the receiving end is not going to understand. Because after all, why are we communicating? We are communicating to convey a thought and to get something across, right? So to educate. So we don't want to sound pretentious and pompous. We want to sound um, open and communicative, right? We want people to be able to ask us questions or continue the dialogue if it's dialogue, or continue the communications if it's written communication. Another thing to keep in mind is when someone asks you how you are, whether it be written or oral, and you say, I'm well, that conveys how you are, your health. And then I'm good means more about your behavior. So I usually say I'm well because I don't know that I'm always good. So a few things to keep in mind with your vocabulary. Now, text messages. Texting is a little more difficult to combat sometimes because they are so instant. Emails are a little more delayed than text messages, so we have time to think and respond. I recommend the same thing in a text message. When you're in receipt of an unpleasant text message, again, take a deep breath. Count if you have to. Don't respond right away. Think about the words being used, who's sending it, maybe their state of mind. I personally do not like to use text messages for professional communications. I feel as if they are a bit more casual, and so I try to reserve those for friends and family, and maybe emergency situations when I'm on site at a meeting where I need to get in touch with someone quickly, and I know that their text will ding in before their email dings in. So I do use text sometimes for professional communications, but usually in an emergency situation only. So again, stick to the facts, think, call for a meeting if you need to with text messages. I recently have been a part of a string of text messages for a volunteer organization I work for, and it got ugly in the group text very quickly because someone said something that really wasn't meant for the whole group. It was just meant to come to me. But since it went to the whole group, which is also a problem, right? With both email and text, you sometimes send things to the wrong people. And that's what happened here. And it caused a lot of problems and a lot of hurt feelings. And ended up, we had to have a meeting that took a couple more hours and to talk it through and work it all out. Because once one thing was said, other things were said, and it escalated unnecessarily. So sometimes miscommunications can cause a lot more problems and take up a lot of our precious time that if we had just taken a deep breath, not responded right away, thought about what was happening, if we stuck to the facts and then called for a meeting and said, I think we need to talk about this instead of texting, that might have prevented a lot of hurt feelings and more time wasted. Again, with text messages, we do not want to use emojis and bitmojis in professional text messages. I realize these emojis and bitmojis are for a reason. They're fun. I can tell you, I personally made a huge blunder, even just sending one to my daughter. I actually thought it was a Bitmoji, and it was saying you're number one. Like there was it was a Bitmoji of me with a foam finger. Well, I didn't realize what finger was being held up, and my daughter said, "Mom, did you realize that you sent me that Bitmoji?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "I wanted to say you're number one." I was just messing around with her, and she said, "Well, that's not what that Bitmoji means." And of course, again, she had to educate me. Well, someone had to educate me, and I had to look at that picture a little bit closer to realize what it was doing. So yeah, even when you try to have fun, sometimes, fortunately it was my daughter, she knows that I would never send her something like that, and wanted to make sure I was more aware. So live and learn, right? Again, with text messages, do not put anything in writing that you do not want shared. Do not put anything in a text that is not true. Do not put anything in a text that you cannot support. And do not put anything in writing that you will regret. Same bit of information, bit of advice as for the emails. And frankly, you can apply this to letters as well. It is important when we communicate that we keep it simple. Sometimes the most professional responses are thank you, you are welcome, please, may I. I mean, again, I know you're sitting there going, these are common sense. But how many times have you said thank you to someone and they've said, no problem? Well, I knew it wasn't a problem, but I'm thanking you for your time. And you saying no problem means, well, you weren't a problem. So it's really conveying the wrong message. So say you are welcome back, you know, or when you say, may I, say yes or no, to respond to that. Don't say absolutely. Because it may not be absolutely. So professional responses are sometimes, the simple professional responses are sometimes the most appropriate responses. So in conclusion, will we ever be rid of miscommunication or communication difficulties? The short answer to this, in my opinion, is no. As long as we are living, breathing humans, we are going to have blunders, imperfect communications. We are going to misspeak or say something we didn't mean. And so really the overall way to get around this and to try to do the best we can in our communications is to stay calm, breathe, to keep it simple, stick to the facts or the truth, and stay on message. One thing I haven't mentioned, but part of that text message that blew up, I was going to try to show you bits and pieces of that, and it became too cumbersome to try to show. But part of that is that it started out with one message, and then things just started flying, and we got totally off track based on that one miscommunication, that one thing that got sent that shouldn't have been sent. So keep in mind that if you are going to change messages, that you should change subjects, you should change texts, but try the best you can to stay on message. And if possible, pick up that phone, because that really is the easiest way to resolve any type of conflict. couple of references that I used in preparing this and that I use daily. The Elements of Style. It's actually a book on writing, and part of our writing and choosing the right word and how we communicate, in emails and letters and text is important. So this little book is easy. It can fit in your pocket or your purse. Now, the Emily Post Etiquette 18th edition, it's huge. It's a very large book. I bet you it weighs 15 pounds. And it has quite a lot of information on communicating with appropriate etiquette and appropriate response times and things like that. But not everybody has that sitting around on their shelf. One last thing before I let you go. Here is my text or voice number. It's my cell, so you are welcome to text or call me. And there is my email address. So I hope this, at least, if none of this was new for you, I hope at least it gets us thinking about how we communicate, both verbally and written. And I will tell you that for me lately, the written piece has been the most difficult, and I have done the most education with clients I work with and students and other people, explaining how it's the easiest way to get mixed up because it's flat. Written communication is flat, whereas when you're actually having a conversation with someone, you can resolve issues quickly because you're right there having that conversation. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this webinar on professional communications, and I wish you all the best in your future endeavors.